Welcome to the Nathan Nephew Show. Of course, I am Nathan Nephew, your host here. Oh, this is being recorded on the day that the government has shut down, closed for business. So, I hope, boy, I sure hope the government's back up and running by the time you hear this, because it was the funniest thing. I got up to go to work today, and the government was shut down. You know, and I saw that on the news this morning, which I was kind of surprised that the news was still running. But I got out to my car, and the highway was still there. The roads were still intact. Turns out, and you know what? The roads still functioned. I drove my car right down them. No problems. No problems at all. Got to work, worked all day in my private sector job, and you know, looked at reports of all the federal workers that are just so upset. I even saw some, talk to some, you know, and they're not going to get paid because they're non-essential, which, I mean, and we'll get into this. I want to, you know, as we always do, we're on, going to go through Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. That's where we're at. Go through that fairly quickly. It's fairly short. It's not too complicated either. And then I definitely want to talk about these non-essential employees and who they are versus essential employees, and really what the government shutdown has meant for this country and all of the pain we're feeling. Now, to double up that pain, or, I mean, to lighten it a little bit, Obamacare started today. Today was the first day that you can sign up for health care through an exchange, or can you? Apparently you can't because the websites aren't working very well, but it's just a glitch, and we expected glitches. Maybe for 3 months we'll have glitches. Obama went as far today as to compare the glitches in the healthcare website not working to a glitch that Apple found in the latest iPhone software, or whatever he called. He might have said iOS. I don't know, but it's not quite the same thing. He's saying, well, nobody asked Apple to stop selling iPhones, and we're not going to stop selling affordable insurance. Then, of course, we're going to talk about who is to blame for the shutdown, and does anybody need to be blamed, and should anybody be running away from the blame of the shutdown? But first, we'll get into Article 1, Section 9. Like I said, not too long, and not as fun as some of the others either. Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution of the United States. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing, at the time of this writing, the Constitution, shall think proper to admit, shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. But a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation, not exceeding $10 for each person. Now, what this is not an illegal immigration type of thing, someone coming from Mexico into this country. This really was an acknowledgement of slavery. It was saying, we know some of the states embrace slavery. We know we will not get this Constitution ratified unless we put a mechanism in place to ensure to those states that they can continue with business as usual until 1808. So it gave them a few years, but it allowed them to tax basically $10 per person, $10 per slave that was imported. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. So this is basically, the writ of habeas corpus is a privilege, a right, whatever you want to call it, that guarantees a person goes to court rather than just being arrested and detained indefinitely. And basically it was put in here to prevent abuse of people being Well, kind of what the NDAA says. You can be arrested, detained, kept indefinitely with no trial. You don't get to go to court. It doesn't matter. You're just being detained. Now, the famous incident of this being suspended, like the Constitution says, was during the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln suspended this. Now, that's an interesting one because was that a rebellion? The southern states, essentially trying to secede from the Union because they really valued the rights of their states as sovereign states, the ability to make their own rules and laws and govern themselves. So, that's one of the, when you're talking to somebody and, or you're overhearing a conversation and one party says, Abraham Lincoln was one of the best presidents ever, he brought the country together. And then the other one immediately says, well, he suspended the writ of habeas corpus. Well, the Constitution does allow it in cases of rebellion. Now, is that the terms he did it under? That's questionable. That's not really what I want to get into here, but this is, I guess the point is, this is the clause in the Constitution that deals with the writ of habeas corpus, the ability to stand trial. Grant suspended it. Ulysses S. Grant suspended it in the 1870s. George Bush, W., suspended it in 2006, I believe, and that was overturned, saying, yeah, no, not quite. That doesn't really fit the scope of what the Constitution meant. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. So basically, you cannot pass a law that says it was illegal yesterday to walk across or to walk down the sidewalk backwards, and then charge people who you saw yesterday walking down the street backwards. Now, you can, in theory, say tomorrow it's illegal to walk down the street backwards, but you can't charge anybody that's already done it before the law was on the books. As well as any law, bill of attainder, a law that labels somebody as guilty before they even go to trial, basically saying if you're caught doing this, you're going to prison. Not if you're caught doing this, you'll have a trial and we'll prove that you did it, the innocent before proven guilty type thing. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. So basically, no taxes. You can have no taxes unless they're divided up amongst the states based on census information. So population, things like that. This actually has been amended through a constitutional amendment, and we'll get to that when we go through the amendments. No tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. So if you're in Ohio, you're selling something to Indiana, the federal government cannot tax that thing that's crossing state lines just because it crossed state lines. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. So basically, any trade that's going on between states, treated equally, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, going from state to state, they must be treated equally. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. Congress has to pass a law that appropriates money to a specific thing before any money is taken out of Treasury. Meaning, the government cannot spend money if an appropriation bill is not passed by Congress. And, of course, public money, they'll publish it from time to time, whenever they want. And laws are made to regulate what time to time is and when that will be published. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. So, we don't have titles of nobility. We don't have a king. We don't have a queen. We don't have a lord. We don't have a duke. We don't allow our president to accept gifts from another country. We don't allow Congress to accept gifts from another country, from a king or a prince or anything like that, unless Congress says so. So there is a if they want to give us something like the bust of Churchill and Congress says, sure, that's fine, we can take it. Otherwise, the king, oh, wow. See, I'm falling into the trap of Obama. Holy cow. Otherwise, the president technically isn't supposed to take gifts from foreign nations. That's really it for Article 1, Section 9. You might have guessed it, but Article 1, Section 10 is coming next. I'm going to take a quick break, come back. We'll talk about the shutdown. We'll talk about Obamacare, and that's pretty much going to wrap it up. So I will be right back.
When it comes to TV, if you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best value in entertainment. Not only will you find the same channels you know and love for less, Dish sweetens the deal with free HD for life and premium movie channels free for 3 months, including Blockbuster at home. You can also save a bundle when you combine DishNet high-speed internet with your TV service. Why would you ever pay more for TV? Switch to Dish and see what real value is. Free HD for life, premium channels free for 3 months, scores of movies with Blockbuster at home, premium savings when you bundle DishNet high-speed internet service. Limited time offer, 24-month agreement with credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. Call for details.
Call Dish Satellite, your Dish authorized retailer now. 800-507-9468. 800-507-9468. 800-507-9468. That's 800-507-9468.
Red State Talk Radio is All-American Talk Radio.
The Nathan Nephew Show. Somewhat unique.
Somewhat unique?
Yes, somewhat unique.
All right, welcome back to the Nathan Nephew Show. I am still Nathan Nephew. I want to remind you to check out my website, nathannephew.com. You can find this show, past shows there. And, of course, you're listening right now on Red State Talk Radio, I hope. If not, check out Red State Talk Radio, redstatetalkradio.com. Find it on TuneIn. Those sorts of all those cool little gadgety apps. So the government shutdown, it is officially not open right now, at least as of the time that I am recording this, which is, what is it? It's October 1st, and 9 o'clock at night approximately. So I haven't really felt too many effects other than seeing all of the people complain about the government shutdown. And I don't mean the people complaining that the Park Service isn't open or things like that. I mean the people that are saying Republicans hate government, Republicans are anarchists, and they want no government. And all these even Republicans saying that the Tea Party conservatives, Ted Cruz, he doesn't want government, he hates government, he hates you. It's really simple to me. The reason the government is shut down right now, and let me be clear, I really don't think it's that big of a deal that the government shut down, because all of the important things, soldiers are getting paid, Social Security checks are going out. That stuff's happening. I'm not too worried about it. And we are furloughing all of the non-essential employees, so they're not getting paid. Now, whether they'll get paid retroactively, that's yet to be seen, but right now they're supposedly not getting paid. The reason the government shut down is because the Democrats and head Dumbo Democrat Barack Obama will not negotiate, will not even discuss any of the options that the Republicans have put on the table. Let's remember what happened, and let's back up a little bit, because this is worse than it even really seems, because what we're arguing over is a continuing resolution to fund the government for 3 months until December, rather than doing what is constitutionally required and passing a budget that funds the government for a year. That hasn't happened in quite some time that we've had a budget signed into law. Definitely nothing worthwhile has come from Congress in, ever, but I mean in a very long time. So we're arguing over a continuing resolution to fund the government that needed to be done last night, but we didn't start working on it 6 months ago when we knew it would happen, or 3 months ago when we passed the last one. We wait until the day that government's ready to shut down and then say, oh, we better hurry, or the day before. And what happened? The Republican House passed a bill that funded everything in the government except Obamacare. And that's because the American people do not want Obamacare. The American people are starting to see that such a huge bill that takes up so much of your personal freedom is not a good thing. So the Republicans in the House listened to that, passed a bill because they've done lots of symbolic votes about defunding or repealing Obamacare. That hasn't gone through. It won't go through the Senate. They knew this wasn't either. They passed the bill. The Senate, nope. We see Ted Cruz's long speech wasn't technically a filibuster, talked for 21 hours or whatever. So then what do the House Republicans do? They compromise, which we hear Republicans never compromise, but they did in this case. They compromise. They come back with, well, fine, we won't defund it. Let's delay it a year, the individual mandate. Let's not force people to purchase something for another year. We'll delay it until after the elections, which should be very agreeable to the Democrats, because if this is spun correctly, and not even spun, if the message is given correctly by the Republicans, this should be easy in 2014 if Obamacare keeps going the way it is, which is not very quickly because the websites keep crashing. So they were going to delay, the House Republicans passed this continuing resolution that funded the entire government but delayed the individual mandate for a year. Nope. Senate Democrats say absolutely not. So the House Republicans say, okay, we'll give you another concession. We'll fund the entire government. We'll fund Obamacare. We would just like to remove subsidies for you and us, for Congress. Congress doesn't deserve special treatment over the people. We passed this monstrosity into law. We should be governed by it as well. If it's good enough for the people we represent, it damn well should be good enough for us. And we shouldn't need subsidies, because if anybody in this country can afford it, it should be us, because we're getting paid $174,000, $200,000 a year. If we can't afford this, which we saw recently that they were complaining they couldn't afford it. If we can't afford this, that's a problem. How do you expect the average person making $40,000, $50,000 a year to afford it if we can't afford it without a 75% subsidy? Of course, the Senate Democrats say, nope, we're not compromising, we're not moving. And Obama says, no, it's the law of the land. There was an election, and I'm not even going to look at anything that's not a full funding of my garbage. Okay, so then the House Republicans say, well, let's just talk. Let's do what we've been doing for 200 years, and when the House and the Senate don't agree, we'll go into a committee, and we'll discuss this. You get your Republicans, Democrat representatives, we'll get our Republican, Democrat representatives. We'll sit in a room, we'll negotiate, we'll figure something out. Nope, we're not even going to talk. We won't even entertain anything except a completely clean, fully funding continuing resolution, and you Republicans won't compromise with us. And then we see the president come out and blame the Republicans in the House of Representatives for not compromising, because what they did is tried a bill, it didn't work, so they tried for less, it didn't work, they tried for less, which is really the definition of compromise. When you don't get what you want, you offer to take a little less, and when that doesn't work, you offer to take a little less. But when one side, and he called the Republicans the party of no, remember this? Who is it that is being the party of no? It's obviously the Democrats. It's the president. And when I see people posting on Facebook and talking on the television and saying, you can't blame the president or the Democrats for this, everybody's to blame, bull crap. What the House Republicans are doing, and some in the Senate, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, what they're doing is they're standing up for what the American people want, which is to get rid of Obamacare. If it were me, I wouldn't have went as far as House Republicans did to go all the way down to fine, we'll fund it, just get rid of the subsidy. I wouldn't have gone any farther, because I don't think the Republicans should have to compromise on this. It's a garbage bill. And when they're saying, no, it was passed and we had an election and it's already law, well, what the hell does that mean? How many times do we amend laws? How many laws have we changed? If it's already law and the House Republicans can't even suggest a change to it, how in the hell do you explain that our president has some 14, 15 times changed the law with a signature, which is actually illegal for him to do? And they're going to say that the body that is supposed to make and amend legislation isn't even allowed to touch it because it was already passed into law. But our president can make changes to it just willy-nilly whenever he wants, just because his name's on it, unofficially, of course, but he embraced it. It's just complete garbage. Now, what I say about who's to blame for the shutdown, it's the Democrats. But if you want to blame the Republicans, they need to embrace it if that's what they're going to do. And say, absolutely, the government shut down because we stood up for our principles. We stood up for what the American people told us they wanted. In almost every single poll that I've seen, the majority of Americans do not want Obamacare. You remember Nancy Pelosi, we have to pass it to see what was in it. It's been passed. We're starting to see what is in it, and we don't want it. People who did want it because they didn't know what was in it are now seeing kind of what's in it, seeing their premiums go up. They don't want it. There's nothing wrong with repealing this thing just because it was passed and just because Barack Obama, the Messiah, was elected again doesn't mean we can't ever touch anything that he's made or that he's pushed or that he supports. It's just ridiculous. And I understand the government shut down, 800,000 workers furloughed, which, I mean, holy cow. That's just the non-essential portion of the government. And it's only like 20% of the government employees. Almost 800,000, or upwards of 1 million now. Who knows what the number is, because no one keeps track of who the hell works for the government. I mean, we saw the one official I saw, and he missed 2.5 years of work, and nobody knew or said anything anyway, but whatever. What exactly is a non-essential employee? And what it is are people that you don't need on a day-to-day basis for the government to handle its main basic functions. Okay? So without non-essential employees, we can still send out Social Security checks. People are still being admitted to VA or making VA appointments. The military is still being paid in large. Why do we need the non-essential employees? Non-essential employees. Why don't we fire them? I mean, come on. You look at a successful business in the private sector, and if they have some non-essential employees and they can't afford the way their operation is going, and they see there's a problem with the budget or whatever, they get rid of the non-essential employees because they're non-essential. It's right in the name. It's not even that complicated. I want to see the Republicans keep pushing. I mean, I think they've gone as far as they should go on this crap. Let the government stay shut down as long as it needs to stay shut down. Blame it on Harry Reid. Blame it on the Democrats in the Senate. Blame it on the president. Or take the blame if you need to and say, we did it on principle. We stood up for what the American people wanted. And that is the sort of person. The person that does that is who I will be behind and who the majority of Americans will be behind. Because I think it's important that they also point out that in 95, 96, whatever, the government shut down. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It shut down a bunch of times under Reagan. It didn't really hurt that much. Now, the next fight we're having is the debt ceiling because we're close. We're getting close to our limit. Once again, our artificial, arbitrary limit of this is how much we can borrow, but we keep raising it. And we're hearing that that'll be a big tragedy. The sequester was a tragedy. The government shutting down will be a tragedy. Debt ceiling will be devastating if we don't increase the debt ceiling because we won't be able to borrow more money. And apparently if we don't borrow more money, we can't pay off the money that we've borrowed. Doesn't make any sense to me. No household runs that way. Not long term anyway. I mean, maybe you get a payday loan or something to pay off some bills, but you pay it back and you don't borrow to pay money that you borrowed because, well, eventually you end up with $17 trillion in debt because you kept borrowing to pay off the money that you've already borrowed. And that's where we are. But it's false to say that if we don't raise the debt ceiling immediately, that we will default on our payments. We have plenty of money to pay the interest payments that we need to pay, to send out the checks that need to be sent out. It can happen. And maybe we need to cut out some of the spending. Like Obamacare. That could help quite a bit, don't you think? Like $2.4 trillion or something that bill's going to cost. Let's get rid of it. That's about all the time I have, though. I want to thank you for listening. Stay tuned in right here, Red State Talk Radio. Don't forget, look me up on Facebook as well as NathanNephew.com. See you next week.